Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And one of the wonderful things for me that I love about hosting this show is when a player comes on that like I'm a fan and he's one of my guitar heroes, and that's the case today. We're with the one and only wonderful Michael Hill from Michael Hill's Blues Mob. They are a New York City band. I've seen them live. You know, I've listened to all their records back in the day. And I will preface this by saying Michael Hill is also one of the most sweetest, nicest, easy guys to talk with. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I just want to thank Tony Lewis for the hookup here.
Tony Lewis, yeah, the one and only.
The one and only. And if you want to hear from Tony, go online. And I interviewed Tony in episode number 200, so you could check that out. He's another great guy that I grew up with across the street from me. I think I've known Tony longer than any human being that I still speak to be honest with you. I think I know Tony like 50 years, man. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
All righty, so let me talk to you about Michael Hill. Michael grew up in the South Bronx. His early exposure to music included the sounds of Harry Belafonte, Jackie Wilson, Johnny Ace, Elvis Presley, and many other 78s and later 45s from his dad's records collection. His mother and grandmother both sang and played piano at home. However, it was hearing Jimi Hendrix that changed his life, inspiring his love of electric guitar. He went to Stuyvesant High School in the East Village, New York City, and Michael and his friends spent virtually every weekend either inside or listening from the street outside the Fillmore East and other New York concert venues. The Fillmore East wasn't far from Stuyvesant. I didn't know you went to Stuyvesant. I went to Science. That's funny, man.
Oh, man. Cool.
Yeah. Michael began playing guitar at 18. He started the band Wild Honey with his siblings Wynette, Kathy, and Kevin, some childhood friends, and two cousins back in 1973. They specialized in popular soul and funk of the time while sneaking in the odd rock or blues number. He continued playing with his siblings while also working as a sideman with various singers and doing the odd recording session, primarily playing cover material. In 1985, he was invited to join the band of poet-performer Saku Sundiata and keyboardist Doug Booth. Saku became a major influence and inspiration. The band also included a guitar player you might know. His name is Vernon Reid, who introduced Michael to the Black Rock Coalition. After this, he formed a solo project, which evolved into the one and only Michael Hill's Blues Mob. Michael and his siblings were raised by their parents to be very cognizant of the American Civil Rights Movement, and he was later involved in anti-Vietnam War activities and Black Panther Party protests. As a result, his music addresses local issues that aren't often spoken to by many blues artists, specifically racial injustice, war and peace, the proliferation of guns in black communities, and police brutality, among other subjects. The music conveys urgency and hope while still manifesting the elements of joy, humor, and groove that make the blues such a powerful healing force. Over the years, Michael has been privileged to perform or record with Little Richard, Carla Thomas, Harry Belafonte, Archie Bell, and B.B. King, and he's jammed with numerous blues heroes of his own, including people like B.B. King, Buddy Guy, and Luther Allison. He's been featured on the covers of Living Blues magazine and Blues Review magazine. He's had international releases of 6 highly acclaimed albums and has performed extensively in 29 countries. Now, here's where it gets cool. In 2006, Michael decided to limit travel due to family and parenting obligations, a very common thing for musicians. But what do? Well, here's what Michael did. He took a position in 2007 as an education paraprofessional at Humanities Preparatory Academy, which is a small progressive New York City public high school. During this time, he's presented songwriting workshops all over the world, and he still plays in local bars and clubs around New York City. He continues performing regularly as a member of the rotating electric and acoustic house bands at the famed Terra Blues Club in Greenwich Village in New York City. In 2018, he traveled with the Michael Hill's Blues Mob to play or host blues festivals in Serbia, Romania, and Germany. And you just did a few nights at Terra Blues like last week, right?
Yeah, acoustic shows. Yeah.
There you go, man. Man, thank you so much for your time. It's really cool to have you here.
It was my great pleasure.
Man, I was telling Michael before the call, it's just so amazing how the universe, we were talking and we're all connected. I remember, I used to listen to Michael Hill's Blues Mob all the time. I came down to Terra Blues to see them play, and now we're sitting here having a conversation. It just blows my mind how this, I always say you can't connect the dots moving forward,
The dots connect themselves.
Indeed, man. Hey, you mentioned in your bio the Black Rock Coalition. Obviously, you hold this group in high esteem. I was curious if you could talk about the group and specifically what the Black Rock Coalition does and how it helped you out or what attracted you to it.
Well, when playing with Saku, I met Vernon, and he told me about two things: his band Living Color, and come down to see them at CBGB's, and the Black Rock Coalition, which is an organization that was promoting the idea of Black musicians playing things that were considered outside the box at the time by the music industry. And the BRC had all kinds of great bands, great artists, and we had meetings every week at that time. And eventually the BRC wound up putting on a lot of shows at CBGBs and other venues around New York City. So being part of that, I mean, in addition to doing presenting, doing presentations at schools for children and then recording a couple of compilation albums of the bands. So it was an inspiring group to be a part of, in the sense that you could hear Black musicians playing what they love, what they want to play, as opposed to, R&B, funk, that is all.
Right.
But if you've been listening to Jimi Hendrix or and there were various combinations of music, folks. I mean, because we were all listening to not only Hendrix and those guys, and going back to Little Richard and stuff, but also Pharoah Sanders, Miles Davis. And so if you're interested in creating some music, which was not what was played on the radio at the time, the Black Rock Coalition was a place for you that would support that idea and that concept. So it was, to this day, the BRC is still doing shows and presentations, and we used to have lawyers come to the meetings and talk about what business entailed. It was just a great thing to be a part of, and the timing, to be there.
It's kind of crazy if you think about it, that in our lifetime, because we're like probably 5 or 10 years apart, in New York City, that Black folks playing heavy metal was odd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of nutty, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was being done, but in terms of the industry, because ultimately the goal of most of these is to make a living playing music. And, you could play, you could play in different clubs occasionally, but there is really strength in numbers. So when the BRC as an organization came and said, hey, we're doing this, and Hilly Crystal at CBGB was very supportive. The Black Rock Coalition would have a night with 4 or 5 bands and high level stuff, original music, and we all love funk and R&B, but this was people's individual expressions.
Yeah.
And so, it's a colorful business, because it's hard to fill clubs, and particularly with stuff that people are not familiar with, unless, a place like CBGB's is the kind of place where people go to see something different and new and whatever. So that connection with the Black Rock Coalition was great. But it's colorful the way things work.
Yeah, it is. Have you been down to the new, like the John Varvatos store?
I've seen it.
Have you been in there?
A bottle of vodka, a tequila, the John Varvatos box with a guitar, but I haven't been in there yet.
Someone told me they have like the posters like from the bathrooms and CBG, like they kind of sort of left it. I haven't been there because I'm not a guy to go in a John Barbados store, to be honest. I mean, I'd go in now because I found that out just for curiosity.
Yeah, I checked that out.
But just curious, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you were a little older than the conventional in quotes artists, when you made your first album. I was wondering how that helped you. And also, was there a reason why you waited to do a solo project?
It's interesting because I was, being in the realm of R&B and that kind of thing, you're working with producers or backing up singers and that kind of thing. And so you spend a lot of time doing that. But and we had our band doing original music, somewhere in the 70s, I guess 70s, early 80s, we played at places like the Coventry in Queens, and we doing our original stuff, and we opened for Kiss one night.
Did you really? Where?
At the Coventry.
At the Coventry. That's so funny.
Yeah,
they were from like
album came out.
Weren't they like most of those guys are from the Bronx, I thought, right?
I'm not sure, but they were cool, and they had their whole the costumes, the whole bit. And this was before the album came out, and they sounded good. It was very cool, but partially it's a matter of my coming to find my voice as a songwriter, a consistent voice. And there came a time when a lot of people were saying, "You should start a blues band," and I had been drawn back to original music by being with Saku Sundiata and Da Da Do Da Da, his band, and with Fitz and the New York band, Jim Fitzgerald, and we were playing a rock, high energy kind of thing. And it just took me back to original music, which is why, I was inspired by Hendrix, and originality is a thing, and so when my band with my brother and sisters, we were playing R&B and the stuff off the charts. And that's what we played in clubs and at dance halls. People would have dances, bring your own brown bag, and they'd have food, and we would play for those. And it's all great music, and we learned a lot. But it was going back to the idea of original music that ultimately led to the blues mob and bluesland and all that stuff. And I guess, as I mentioned, it took time for me to develop a voice as a songwriter and a focus. Enough people telling me you should start a blues band finally sank in. You know what? I love blues, I love rock, R&B, all of it, but blues seemed to be something that when I played that, it connected with people.
Yeah, I give you credit for not, for having the awareness of, I needed to find my voice, as opposed to, pushing, and then maybe, not quality of what you did wouldn't have been as high.
Yeah, it's hard to know because I wrote songs and I hear some of them occasionally, and it's some cool stuff, but there needs to be a body of work attached to it, and a certain voice that is, even though the songs are different and varied, there's a consistency of that, and that took time for me to develop.
Yeah. Well, you found it.
Well, I was greatly blessed with my brother Kevin and my sisters Kathy and Lynette. Whatever band that was the foundation.
Yeah, it's good to get a groove on with your.
And my parents, it was unbelievable. We had and my brother Kevin and I shared our bedroom, and we had the band set up, drums, PA system, the whole. And our neighbors were very cool because we lived in that building a long time, and so there's a lot of support that we had that made it possible. My parents coming to all these shows when Kevin and Kathy were 14 and 15, we couldn't have played, but without that love and support. So that's what enabled things to go forward,
That's awesome, man. Bloodline, your first album, that was on Alligator Records.
Yeah.
That's a big vote of confidence out, like to get your first record out on Alligator. I would wondering, how did you guys get hooked up? That's like serious stuff.
It's a whole, we were gigging around at CBGBs and different shows with the Black Rock Coalition as Michael Hill's Bluesland. And at the same time, I had a band called Michael Hill's Blues Mob, and we were doing the blues clubs, with some of the same material, but there was more of an accent on straight blues. And it was 4 pieces opposed to 7 pieces in Bluesland with my sisters and the whole thing. And there came a time when, actually, I guess, in Guitar Player magazine, a guy wrote an article, and he is a white guy, professor from down south, guy who brought Corey Harris to Alligator Records. And his article was saying white people can't play blues, they're only imitators and this and that. And he wrote that, and then he responded to his, hey, the blues is not black music, it's big like women and this. And I wrote back in response to that saying, listen, music belongs to whoever loves it. Yeah. But make no mistake, this comes out of the black experience in America.
Sure.
That's, and basically I sent that as a letter, and they wanted to print it as a guest editorial. And then the editor, Chaz Obrecht at the time.
Yeah. Chaz, right. Yeah. Obrecht,
he got in touch, and he wanted to print it as a guest editorial. He said, I've been hearing about you from Vernon Reid, different, send me some music. So we did a 12-track demo, sent that.
Wow, 12-track demo. That's not playing around.
It was, we went to a studio and did the whole, and, Jazz, he liked it enough that we talked, and he said he had only ever presented one other artist to Bruce Iglauer at Alligator Records, and that was, I can't, his name slips my mind right now, a slide player from Australia, Dave Hole.
Okay.
Great guy. And Bruce signed him. He said, if it's all right, I want to give your music to Bruce too. And so he presented it to Bruce, and Bruce, you know what? Actually, I had sent live recordings to Jazz. And then after talking to Bruce, we did a demo or 12-track, and Bruce heard it, and he wrote back and said, man, I'm hearing some good things, but, I'm not hearing all the things that I've heard of. Well, okay, down the line, in Brooklyn, New York, there's a place called Prospect Park, and
sure.
Festival every year called Celebrate Brooklyn, and they would have battles of the band, which is something that we were, battle of the bands, but one particular year they had blues, and so we said, let's jump, we'll have fun, whatever, We wound up winning it and getting some studio time as one of the prizes to record for a radio show. One of the engineers there was a guy named Brian Young, and he had spec time due because, people who worked in studios at that time would build up equity so that they could have time to record projects they were interested in. And Brian wanted to record the Blues Mob because we did Bluesland and Blues Mob music then. And the 4-piece band grabbed him. So I wrote 3 songs, and we recorded them with Brian at the studio, sent them to Bruce, and Bruce got in touch and said, so what are you playing? I want to come see you. And he came to see us at Terra Blues. And the music industry, you're sort of, yeah, right, this guy's going to come see us on a Thursday night, whatever it was. He came, Bruce Iglauer was there, man. And he's like, whoa. And so that led to our being signed with Alligator Records.
What a nice story, man. And funny how it happened because you sent in a letter in response to an article. Right. That boggles my mind.
I tell young people in the high school in which I work all the time, whatever you're doing in life, you can write. It's a gift, and you're ahead of the game, Totally. And that came around because I was writing that letter,
That's amazing, man. That's a very good story, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
When Bloodlines came out in '94, I bought it probably because I knew Tony, and I was like, holy man, my boy's on a record. Right.
Tony was great, and he and my brother Kevin hooked up playing behind a singer in Manhattan, and then later on we all played together with Saku. And and then when we started Bluesland, Tony was the original drummer of that, and in the Blues Mob. So yeah, he and Kevin together are just
great rhythm section, man.
Incredible, yeah.
And then the album goes on to win the Living Blues Critics Award for debut blues album of the year. I remember listening. It's funny because I in preparation for the interview, I went back to listen to Bloodlines, right? And I remember listening to the opening lyrics of the first song on that first record. It's called Can't Recall a Time. And the lyrics, I can't recall a time so many children had the blues. And your voice, man, it was like super soulful, man. And it was like really, and I felt like you were sharing something, and I wanted to know what you were talking about specifically when you wrote it at that time, and probably what it's called. Nothing's changed. Sadly.
It's, Tony, that was a groove that Tony had. And so he's a co-writer on that, and he gave it to me. And I was, the idea, I think at the time there were numerous stories, as there are now, of child abuse, different stuff, and the line came, can't recall a time so many children had the blues. And in reality, a lot of children have always had the blues, but that line struck at that time. And in worlds of pain and pressure, they're growing up too fast. The innocence of childhood, the memory from the past,
That's heavy, man.
Yeah, I mean, the innocence of childhood, it was always complex issue,
Very much.
Yeah.
But they did it. Remember, there was a lot of wacky stuff going on back there, especially in New York. Remember when they had that? I don't know why I remember the name. It was Hedda Nussbaum. I don't know why I didn't even remember that woman and the guy, and Joel something, he kept her and the kid. They were like, and then the other kid, the Eitan Pates. That was just, there was some wacky stuff going on back there, man.
It's true. And I mean, and in all likelihood, stuff like that is going on all the time, all over the world.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate. It's sad people live these stories, but I guess, at a moment, something grabs your attention in a way that you can speak to. And that's what happened with that song,
You did it as, like I said, I remember hearing it when I first heard it. It reached out and grabbed me, and it was just beautiful how you laid it out there, man. Thank you.
You're very kind.
Saku Sundiata was a big influence on you, and he had some guest vocals on that first album as well. For people not familiar with him, can you talk about who he was and how he influenced you?
Yeah, Saku was a singular influence for me. I mean, along with Hendrix, Bob Marley, whoever, but he was a poet, and he taught at the New School, taught writing, so he was very accomplished, but he was also, his poetry, he was a performing poet, and he had a band, and it was funky. It was incredible stuff with his songs, his lyrics. Doug Booth was the keyboard player in MD, but excuse me, Vernon Reid was in that band. J.T. Lewis, Tony Bridges played bass at the time. I was invited to join, and it was some amazing stuff. And Saku was very charismatic, and he has 2 albums out. I'd highly recommend anybody to hear those. And one is called The Blue Oneness of Dreams, if I'm not mistaken, and the other is called Long Story Short. And
that's a great title, man. A Long Story Short. It's really cool.
That album was about to come out, and the label that he was with wasn't able to support it. He had taught a young woman, Annie DeFranco.
Yeah.
Right? So, became an industry unto herself.
Sure.
She was a young woman, and so Saku was one of her teachers. And when they found that the album wasn't going to be released by their label, she put it out on her label immediately, Righteous Babe Records. And excuse me. And the other thing about Saku, he was very gifted as a performer, very engaging, charismatic, very cool. But he also, his voice, he had a really rich, resonant voice. You hear him?
Definitely, man.
Yeah, so
he's on let's just Signify a Monkey.
Signify a Monkey.
Yeah, man. His voice is very distinct, man.
Oh man, amazingly beautiful voice. And so, Saku as a person and as an artist, as a writer, as he was very inspiring for me. And as things evolved, Kevin and Tony, my brother Kevin and Tony Lewis, they wound up being in the band with me, at the time with Doug Booth and Koyao Ajiapone, an amazing percussionist, and Sekou, Sekou, just in terms of integrity and serious artistry. He later went on to do like large scale pieces for theater, and very highly acclaimed before he passed.
Very cool. Good that you had that experience. Opportunity to work with him, man.
Yes.
I'm curious. You played with some of your own heroes, and if you can maybe talk about how the connection came to be, and maybe if you have a cool story or an interesting story about working with them. I'm going to pull out 3 guys. Buddy Guy.
Our band was chosen to be the house band for the Benson and Hedges Blues Festival press party, and at that year, I forgot where it was held. It was in Manhattan, of course, and John Lee Hooker was there. He was on the festival, but he didn't play that day. B.B. King, Buddy Guy. Little Jimmy King, who was a new guy at the time, who wound up dying young when he was, a great guitar player. But that's how we got to play. And Buddy Guy and BB King both sat in. Robert
that's
Klein, the
crazy
comedian.
Man.
It was amazing. And as in all my experiences with BB King, was just the most gracious guy. It was amazing. He was, Buddy was cool, and but BB's like, the guy.
Buddy Guy, I've seen him in concert several times. I saw him at the Beacon a couple of times, and there's like multiple Buddy Guy personalities, man. Like you got the Buddy Guy who comes out one night, and man, he had to be drinking. He's cursing up a storm, mother. And then you got the other Buddy Guy who's just like laid back and chill. And then the other Buddy Guy who's totally on fire. You never know which Buddy Guy's coming out. I don't think he knows which Buddy Guy's coming out.
It's funny. I saw all of those Buddy Guys getting back at the what was the place called? The Bottom Line.
Oh yeah, man, I saw him there.
When he was touring with Junior Wells.
Yeah.
And
that's way back.
A lot of magic. But yeah, there was a glass had been raised sometimes, and I remember seeing Buddy Guy at a club before all that, and I forgot whether it was Ngano's, but the only people in the room were a table of press guys. I was there, maybe one other person, and Buddy Guy was just blazing. I mean, blazing. And so, yeah, Buddy is a character, but he's still in there throwing down hard. His latest album, he's, sounding good, and
sounds great. It's amazing that how fiery his playing is throughout his whole career. There's not many people that could just light a match like that, and it's like turbo on an engine on a car or something, and he just like 0 to 100, and it's like instant, man. It's very powerful, man.
Soulful, and and I mean sometimes it wasn't like the cleanest guitar playing in the world, but it was definitely the passion, the fire.
Right.
He had a thing, that was unique, and he has a thing that's unique.
Very much, man. How about Luther Allison? Was he on that set as well?
No, we were, when Luther was on Alligator when we were on there.
Right.
And we played Chicago at the House of Blues once, opening for him.
Wow.
And Bruce Iglauer introduced me to Luther Allison before the show, and Luther didn't usually meet me before the shows, but Bruce wanted me to meet him, and he took me up there. And Luther Allison, this was after our set actually, and Luther said, keep on doing what you're doing. Let them know where we're coming from. And I mean, his intensity, it was like marching orders. Okay, we keep to this.
Yeah.
And then he got up there and played like a 2-hour plus set. And I hung around because, well, not like to see him, but it would have been a long day driving. Everybody's tired, but he was going to have me sit in. And I wound up sitting in with he and his son, Bernard Allison.
Yeah. Wow. What was that like?
Oh, it was fantastic, man, because when you play with people who can really play and are also gracious people. It's always about a well, it's not a competition. It was a collaboration, you know, and you can work. It was just great. And this is that Luther was up on the bar. He was doing this whole thing. It's only a few months later that he passed from cancer, you know. Amazing. But so, yeah, I mean, he was just an amazing guy. Very intense, great singer, great player, the whole bit.
Yeah, very soulful cat, man.
Yes.
2006, you decided to stop touring. Was it a tough decision to come to? And even more so, was it a tough decision to execute? Because we all make decisions. Everybody decides to lose weight. Everybody decides to go to the gym. Execution, maybe not the same time, you know?
You know, it was something I had been wrestling with for maybe a couple of years. And, you know, the band would say, we got to get on the road. And, we got to get on the road. But then, you know, I would be home thinking, you know. So finally, I realized I would just pull back from this and speak with the guys. And I'm fortunate, you know, everybody had a lot of things going on. By that time, Bill McClellan was our drummer, great drummer, still plays in the Blues Mob. Mike Greel was on bass and still, but they have a lot of things going on as well. So it wasn't like just leaving people with nothing happening.
I can't eat kind of situation.
That. And a lot of it had to do with maturity and certain, I mean, it feels, when I look back on my life, it feels like I never really took money very seriously until relatively recently. And that, along with that comes making decisions with the family at the front of the decision rather than whatever's going on career-wise, trying to build this thing. And it was a hard decision because the Blues Mob, we were very fortunate. We had a lot of success and a lot of travel, a lot about the albums, the whole, and, you know, things are pointing in a very good direction if we had continued, but it entailed not only writing songs, trying to write great songs and record them really well, but a necessity of the blues world is being on the road and being away from home. And so the more successful we were, the less I would be home. And it just came a point where I was really unhappy, you know, with the travel. And so that's why I want to, you know, putting the Blues Mob on the back burner.
No, I totally get it. And, you know, I think anytime, it's like ending any relationship, man. Like, you don't end it the first day. You're like, oh, I think we need.
Yeah.
That's it, man. You don't go to the dentist the first day you got tooth pain.
Right.
So, you know, so how are you going to end a relationship, whether it's a career relationship or a personal relationship? It takes time, and you have to, you know, you got to really be sick and tired to some extent, you know, and, you know, thoroughly exhaust because you don't want to feel like you're giving up.
No. And I mean, it was still a lot of fun and everything. And if I was single, it's a whole different deal. But, you know, my wife had been putting up with a lot with the ups and downs of economics and the whole thing. And our son was growing up, and I was away for these long periods of time. And it just felt like, I felt like there was nothing I could accomplish with music that would be as rewarding as helping Katie raise son to be a happy young man and a gentleman, you know. And so
I hope I hope your son listens to this and hears that, because that's a very, and he's not going to understand at his age, but that's a very, very loving, you know, that's a deep love that allowed you to come to that conclusion and execute it.
Well, that and I mean, recognizing Katie's sacrifices to make to help the Blues Mob happen at all. And, you know, we're fortunate. Seth graduated Boston University in May, and he's an actor.
Congratulations, man.
Oh, thank you. And he is a young gentleman. He's finding his way. But I mean, so I have no regrets about the decision. And I guess one of the particular things was the fact that in order to be more successful, we had to be away from home more and more and more. And that, you know, so you know, and I never would have imagined when I started playing music that I would come to a point where I would say, you know what, okay, I'm not going to do this. You know, but
well, you realize that success at home and the success in your career were not compatible. It was what it comes down to.
Basically, yeah. I mean, unless you get to be the Rolling Stones, where money is no object, and when you do travel, you can take your family if you want, and all of that. So, and I guess I wasn't constitutionally set up to say, hey, you know what, fuck this, I'm playing music. You know, I mean, I guess I did that long enough.
Yeah.
It came to a point where, you know what, no, can't do that.
Man, well, you're happy right now today, so whatever decision you made was the right decision, man. That's all.
You know, and we do things. Summertime comes up, and a few years back, I'm off school. Then, you know, we played.
Oh, that's right.
We returned to Brazil to play a festival we had played in with the Blues Mob, and we were in Portugal and Spain a few years ago, and we gig, you know, and band members and former band members are doing their things too, but we still make music together, and I'm very blessed with that, you know, including my brother Kevin, you know. In fact,
cool.
with the acoustic shows recently, it was with Tony and Kevin, and it was the acoustic trio and the original Blues Mob. We had a great time. It was just so cool.
Did you get like, while you were there, was it sort of nostalgic at points of time where you were like, nothing's, you know, like you felt like back home, sort of?
Well, absolutely, because Terror Blues is the place where Bruce Iglauer came and saw us and wanted to sign the band. So that was 1991, and amazingly, Terror Blues is still there. I mean, they just had their 28th anniversary last year. You know, the owner, Elon, he loves the blues, and he said he came to the United States because of the music. And I remember once years ago speaking with him because so many clubs, whether it was Tramps, Mondo Cane, Mondo Perso, Chicago Blues, Manny's Car Wash, great clubs had to close because of the economics and
rents, man.
Real estate. And I remember,
man, I just heard, sorry to cut you off, I just saw an article this morning, Cornelia Street Cafe closed.
Yeah, they're closing. And
I couldn't believe it.
Know, well, I spoke with Alon, and I was saying, man, all these clubs are closing. He said, we will be here. And I remember thinking, okay, and they are here. So, you know, so when we're playing there again with Tony and Kevin, we're playing acoustic, but it definitely took me back. I mean, the first time we were there with electric music, and then when Bruce Iglauer came and saw us, and we played there a lot over the years. But yeah, it was definitely a homecoming.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you got to experience that.
Yeah, thank you.
You grew up in the Bronx just like I did. What was your childhood like?
My childhood was, for me, my memories on the idyllic side. You know, there's a housing project called Forest Houses, and looking back, that was really like what it now would be like middle class housing. Really, it was a housing project, but very green, and they had it was just details that you don't see. You know, and a lot of families moved in there the first week. And I have friends we've been friends for 60 years now. And then it's, you know, and it was the kind of place where parents watched out for each other's children. It was nuclear families at that time. We moved in there in 56. So most mothers were home, fathers are working, and in the summertime, the parents are sitting on the bench and the kids are running all around. It was a big place with you know, so I remember my childhood, great friends, and, you know, you know, I mean, you have the adventures of childhood, but all in all, it was a good time to grow up in the Bronx.
Where was that? Where's Forest Houses?
163rd and between Trinity and 165th.
Was that near the old Bronx community?
Well, it was further across because that was like the concourse, if I remember. Okay. And I mean, and if you go east from the concourse,
you were east of the concourse,
right?
Okay.
And we're a couple of blocks up from 3rd Avenue.
Oh, you're way east. Okay.
Yeah, and But it was like a 25-minute walk to Yankee Stadium, where we would go right across 161st Street and see games for 75 cents and pack a lunch. And so, but yeah, it was like on east of Third Avenue and of the Grand Concourse and stuff.
Right. Okay, I know exactly where that is, man. What kind of work did your folks do? You said your mom was a stay-at-home mom. What'd your dad do?
Well, she was for most of the time we were growing up. My mother, my parents both came from the South, and my mother had never had the opportunity to finish high school, although she was very educated, and she really had my siblings and I, both my parents, but especially my mom, focus on speaking properly, reading a lot, and all of the education, the whole thing. And it was such a big deal to her that she went back to school and got her high school diploma and wound up working as an educational paraprofessional.
Good for her, man. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, she was amazing. She was mentioned in the New York Times. She was one of the leaders of a move to have a traffic light change in our neighborhoods sitting in. And then she also was involved in trying to get rid of a principal who had made racist comments about the children in our school. And she was a firebrand, and she was amazing. My father was a printing pressman, and he was the first Black printing pressman to graduate from, I don't know whether it's a New York school of printing, but whatever school he was in, they didn't want to admit any Black people. And his boss had enough clout to say, hey, you know what? And he wound up graduating there. But I used to go to work with him on Saturdays sometimes, and he'd be running these huge printing presses. And then later on, he had a second job cleaning offices in addition to that job. And I used to go with him sometimes and do that with my siblings. But very, very focused and ambitious and together until they passed,
Wow.
And
sound like they had a great work ethic too.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, my father was a Virgo. He was the kind of guy, you'd wash the windows and he'd go back and rewash them because it wasn't good enough. They were just, but my parents' relationship was tempestuous. They argued, but the love in our family between the two of them and the four of us was never a question, and I was very fortunate.
That's great, man.
Having my parents.
It's funny. I was listening to you. Common sense. How can you be a principal in the South Bronx and make racist comments, man?
It's fascinating.
Probably not the place you're going to make those racist comments in the South, that's common sense, man. It's just not a smart thing.
You got to have enough character to recognize. It's wild. But the other thing about my father, he eventually went deaf. But ironically, it was his record collection that got me. I remember he had a 78 of Hound Dog on one side and Don't Be Cruel by Elvis on the other side, which was Don't Be Cruel written by Otis Blackwell, black songwriter who lived from Brooklyn. But I remember playing that record over and over and over again, and other records by, Johnny Ace, he had some Sinatra, some Duke Ellington, and all the guys you mentioned earlier. So that was he brought the music to me, as well as my mother and grandmother singing. And my siblings and I were always singing,
That's great, man.
Yeah.
It's really good that, I think, watching your mom, I would imagine watching your mom raise 4 children from somebody who didn't have a high school diploma, then she gets a diploma, then she has a career, then she becomes active in the community, and she doesn't, like you said, she was a firebrand, and she's not going to sit down and kowtow just because of lack of education or being Black, whatever. I mean, that's I would imagine that's really empowered you as a child, all 4 of you, to probably gave you a ton of confidence.
Well, she was inspiring because, the stuff she did with the protests and being mentioned in the New York Times and all of that was before she went back to school and got her diploma. But she was always incredibly well spoken and focused on that stuff. And so she was, both my parents were inspiring people.
That's good, man.
My father also did the Cub Scout, the head of the Cub Scout chapter I was in, that kind of thing. He'd play ball with us, and so Yeah.
Yeah. So like idyllic, that's the word you use. I think that is kind of an idyllic upbringing, man. That's great. What were some of the bigger surprises for you, Michael, when you first started playing professionally about the business end of the music business?
I guess probably just the whole idea of thinking of it in terms of business, because you're gigging, you're playing. Our first band had 10 people, so we weren't thinking about budget. We were making any money, but we were making this music. And so as time goes on, you come to learn what it means. Well, to try to make a living playing music is a whole other deal, and it's interesting. I found in my life that I tend to remember really good things, and I tend not to remember or have focused on things that weren't so cool. But I do remember there's always an excitement in in playing and this whole thing. But one interesting thing, one of the gigs we did at the Coventry, there was a guy there who was talking about signing the band, and he was looking at my sisters and me, because I sang a lot too. And he said, yeah, okay, but we get rid of the bass player and this and this. Well, bass player is my brother. He said, okay, so we'll keep the bass player. But it's like, man, you know what? Yeah. So there are things that you come across and you realize, okay, this is not the thing. We were talking yesterday. One of the classes at Humanities Prep, a teacher named Dorian. Dorian Heron, great English teacher, great guy. He plays music too, guitar, bass. But we're reading Native Son, and he instigates conversations with different quotes. And there was a quote I forgot who it was from, but it was, power is the true meaning of being a man, something like that. And we discussed, and my thought was, what? That's kind of like a counterfeit, idea. I mean, because that is talking about power over other people.
Yeah.
That's not talking about self-empowerment. That's not talking about, because really it's integrity, and the ability to respect and love other people. That is really what manhood is about for me. And so
I agree with you, man.
I don't know what got me on that, but and so you look for integrity, and people, and that's why, I mean, by the time Bruce Iglauer came to see us, we've been gigging a while, and people make promises, or then they try to do them, maybe with all good intentions, but when Bruce Iglauer showed up at Terra Blues, it was like, oh, okay, this guy's serious. And when we spoke, he said, you hear a lot of things about me, but you'll never hear that I'm not honest, To this day, I mean, I get royalty checks from Alligator Records, and and so integrity looms large. And when you see that in the music business, it's something to take note of, that might be somebody to work with.
I heard this definition a long time ago of integrity. Something like integrity is how you behave when no one's looking.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I said, man, that's about it, man.
Yeah, it's serious.
Any advice, if you want it, would there be any advice that you would have given your younger self that would have made your life easier in any way?
Well, I've said, take money seriously, for one thing. And, I never worried about it. I always felt it would happen, but I could have done things that would have, made it, would have assured that economics were always cool. That's one thing. And I mean, I guess what I told other artists, young people who came to shows, or not even young, but when we were touring a lot, people would ask that kind of question. And I always told people, take your singing seriously, because, all the blues artists you love, whether it's Otis Rush, whether it's BB King, Albert King, Freddie King, Buddy Guy, whoever it is, they sing at least as well as they play.
Yeah.
So singing, and the voice is always going to be the most popular instrument. So playing guitar is great, but take your singing seriously. If you have any ability at all, do something with that. The other thing I also told people is write. You got to write, because your writing is what's going to separate you from every other artist in the universe, because nobody can tell your stories the way you can tell them. And those are the two things. And I guess, focusing on that rather than, all the gigging I did with other artists, with performers, whatever, I guess I would have made that, original music central early.
Sure. Thank you, man. It's funny because I interviewed a guy named Cliff Goodwin a while ago. Cliff was Joe Cocker's guitar player in the Cocker heyday. And he said something to me. He said, Craig, a song has got to have a melody. He goes, a song never won a Grammy because of the snare drum, or the guitar solo. It's like, what you just said, man, you gotta, the voice is going to take the focus of any popular song. 100%, man.
And and everything that happens with any recording hangs around the song. It could be a minimal thing. It could be a complex, involved thing, but whatever it is, there's something in the lyrics, the music, the melody, whatever it is that touches people. I mean, production can enhance that, but a lot of, I don't know, maybe most songs that are hits, you could sit there and play the song on a guitar by yourself and people would still feel it,
For sure. You got to have that melody, man.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about guitar and music. I want to talk about some gear, but just curious, man, because I know you've seen a bunch of great shows. What's the top 3 best concerts you think you've been at?
Wow. I mean, Hendrix at Woodstock was amazing.
You were at Woodstock?
Yeah. The second 2 days, not the first day.
Serious?
Yeah. My parents didn't want to let me go at first, but one of my friends from high school, Dennis, was gonna. His parents let him go, so we wound up going to Port Authority on that. It was, I guess, this Friday night. Got up there. We saw. Well, Dennis turned back, but we both got there. We were walking because it was like a 10-mile walk from Monticello to where the field was, and halfway there we said, because there were a lot of people going back and saying the festival was canceled, it's a disaster area, and blah, blah. And so we turned back. And then at the bus station, as we were getting our tickets to come back to New York, one of my junior high school friends who I hadn't seen in a while, Andy, said, yo, man, come on, let's go. I said, okay, let's go. And Dennis said, no, I'm going home. And the rest is history. We got up there and it was like, whoa, this is magic,
So how long did it take you to walk from Monticello to the festival grounds?
It took a few hours.
Yeah.
And it was cool because all the way up, people were socializing, and then talking to girls. We were 17, 18, and having wine from the little pouches they used to have in those days.
Oh, yeah.
But it was well worth it. And a lot of people played great. Sly and the Family Stone, Creed, everybody did their thing. The Grateful Dead had a rough time because I think there was some electrical problem that somebody got shocked. But Hendrix took the cake for me. And also the Band of Gypsies, I saw them both nights, those shows. I guess, and I've seen so many shows, I saw Miles Davis at Lehman College later in his career. And I mean, that was amazing. Seeing Pharoah Sanders, I guess, Santana's one of their first shows at Fillmore East, I saw that before their album was
serious.
Out. And it was,
man, you've seen some serious shows.
I've been very fortunate, right place, right time.
Wow.
And
Santana at the Fillmore. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm just like,
they were third on the bill. I think it was Canned Heat, 3 Dog Night, and Santana was opening, and not on the bill. They had special guests, Shanana. They came and did a short set. But a couple of weeks later, Santana played at a free show at Central Park with the Jefferson Airplane. Now, this whole thing, Carlos, as I was leaving with some friends, we saw Carlos Santana walking with some people. I said, "Hey, Carlos," he was just cool. And then, like years later, I was playing with Harry Belafonte, and as I'm flying out there, we rehearsed for a month, flying out, and the first shows were with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, and I'm on the plane thinking, man, what if I see Carlos? Because I had his latest CD, cassette at the time. It was called Spirits in the Flesh. And I'm thinking, I thought, wait, what am I talking about? I see Carlos Santana just because I'm going to San Francisco. Well, we did the shows, and the Sunday show, we're hanging out waiting to play. And that was the day the Knicks were playing the Bulls in the playoffs, and everybody's watching. And the bass player, great guy named Chulo Gatewood, great bass player, came and said, "Yo, man, Carlos Santana's here." I said, "Get the fuck out of here. Carlos Santana's here." He said, "No, man, seriously, he's meeting with Harry." So I had to grab the cassette, went down, and there's Carlos Santana talking to Harry Belafonte, because they're both activists and fighters, and I met Carlos the second time, and he signed the cassette, the whole thing. But
wow,
so
man. Now you talk about a dude, how he's made money. Man, he's got 12 people up on stage, and he's had that for 40 years. Yep.
Oh man, Carlos is greatly blessed and deservedly so. He's he's a fantastic guitar player, fantastic band leader, and musician. I just recently read his biography, The Universal Tone. Highly recommend that to anybody.
Universal Tone. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Carlos's book. And another book I recommend is Bitten by the Blues, the Alligator Record Story. It's Bruce Iglauer's book.
I'm going to see if I can get Bruce on my show, because he's probably got a story or two to tell.
To say the least. His book is absolutely amazing. All the artists with whom he's worked, who he saw, it's great. And information, talking about the business too. Bruce.
Yeah, that's a guy who figured it out.
Yep. And I mean, challenges all the way, but I mean, he's actually still got a brick and mortar record company going.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about gear for a few minutes. What was your go-to guitar back in the day? And we're talking about electric or acoustic, whatever you like. And what's your go-to guitar right now? And maybe what else are you playing now to round out your top three?
Well, I mean, when we were signed to Alligator, by the time we did that, I was playing a Steinberger guitar with no headstock. And it is great guitar, very incredibly responsive, great harmonics on it, and it felt great, very streamlined, very cool. We were in Australia, and I was realizing if anything went wrong, very few people could fix that guitar. So I thought I'd get back to a traditional guitar. I still have the Steinberger. I love it. It's amazing. But after that, I didn't want to go back to Fenders, because my very first guitar in terms of performing was a Fender Strat. By that time, everybody's playing Strats. So I went to Gibson. I got a Les Paul Studio and later a Gold Top. They were cool. Years later, I wound up going back to Fender. I was producing an album by my friend Deb Landolt, Long Tall Deb. She and Colin John have some albums on VizTone Records. But,
that's man, don't tell me. That's I interviewed him, man. Bob Margolin's company. Yeah. I interviewed Bob. Steady rolling Bob Margolin. Yeah.
Bob. We were on Alligator at the same time.
Yeah.
Bob is cool. Well, I produced Deb's first album, and the guitar player just had this whole thing with, he played a Strat, and his tones were just beautiful, and that brought me back to the Fender 5, the Stratocaster 5 separate tones with the single coils, and when you overdrive them, they all have that character. So that took me back to Fender, and then a couple of years after that, I was on my computer. And how ads come up and an ad came up, and I had always wanted to get a butterscotch blonde Telecaster because I just thought it was a cool thing.
They are cool, man.
Well, the ad came up, Fender Fender Telecaster SE, and I think, wow, it's $599, Wound up getting that and wasn't expecting it to become my main guitar. But all my Fenders have quiet pickups. I can't have that 60 cycle hum anymore. And I looked into pickups. I had Duncan stacks on my Strat. I bought an American Standard Strat, but the Telecaster, I look around, came across Kenman pickups out of Australia, and they sound fantastic on there. And then the last 3 years, I've been a Telecaster guy.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, wow. The thing, and originally the thing about the Steinberger is it had single coils and a humbucker, and it could get a whole variety of tones that were beautiful and but I'm loving this Telecaster.
That's really cool. Johnny Winter played a Steinberger for a period in time, and Leslie West did too for like periods in their career.
Well, I know Johnny played I think it was a laser guitar. It didn't have a headstock. It was a different brand.
Wasn't a Steinberger. Okay, I didn't know. I thought it was. Oh, interesting.
But I know Jamaluddin Takuma made Steinberger basses famous, great fusion jazz player, and but Steinberger is a singular guitar. I wound up getting an endorsement with Gibson using that with the Blues Mob on our first 2 albums.
Oh, that's great, man. So your Gold Top, was that a regular, like a reissue or a
57 reissue Gold Top?
That's cool, man.
When economics dictated that I sell that at one point, which was easy to do because the Les Paul Studio I had was so good. I put Duncan Antiquities on it, and guitar is great. So it didn't feel like a great loss not having the Gold Top.
Sure. Those are you a big guy? Because like big hands? Because those old ones, man, I can't play them. They're too thick for me. I'm only like 5'9". My hands are average, period, at best.
Well, I always feel like my hands are average, although they've been described as being large. I've seen people with much larger hands than mine. But yeah, I mean, I got around on it nicely. And to my abilities and stuff, but but going back to the Fenders, it was also something like going home because those tones.
They're so easy, man. I mean, I always go back to my Strat to say the same thing. I love the Gibson sound, but the Strats are just so easy to play, man.
Well, the versatility of the Fender, of the single coil thing too, because you can drive it, but it's not the exact same drive as the Les Paul, but you can drive it. But the clean sounds are,
very identifiable, and yeah. And again, for me, they're just so easy to play, man. What was your setup, man? Now this is a fanboy question, man. What was your setup with the Blues Mob as far as like specifically distortion, fuzz, and wah? If you remember, because I know it's been a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I've used different overdrive pedals over the years. My wife made a note that I should mention Hubert Sumlin.
Oh yeah,
guitar player, as one of my great heroes in the music. Had the pleasure of playing with him a few times, and his playing is just so cool, but he is just also so cool.
And he never ever used a pick, did he?
I think he did earlier, and he said Holland Wolf got him to use his thumb. He wanted him to play without the pick, and that's what got him to do that.
That's interesting.
It's just amazing listening to his, like the solo on Killing Floor. I mean, it's so percussive and but no pick. It's like, okay. But Hubert, we were playing a festival in Norway, and multiple rooms, bands playing, and somebody said Hubert Sumlin was coming to our show. I was like, Hubert Sumlin, whoa, but he's the kind of guy who comes in the room and makes you feel like you've known him your whole life.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah. So Hubert is, when I think of, when it comes to the blues, I guess B.B. King, Hubert Sumlin, and Junior Wells are, and Luther. I mean, yeah, they're about 5 guys who.
Was that there was a guy, Sean Chambers?
I've heard the name.
He's a blues guitar. He was Hubert's music director. I think, I don't know when. I thought maybe in the mid to late 90s. I don't know. Maybe it was later than that.
It's possible because Hubert. Oh, I should mention to you, Howlin' Wolf is like right on the top shelf. He and BB, I guess, he just had only two, but Hubert would play with different bands. His manager, she was ever so cool. So I wound up playing with Hubert in an acoustic show at Terra Blues.
Wow, electric
shows and Terry. So we've done a few things together. But Tony,
pretty impressive, man.
Well, that is incredible honor.
Yeah,
do that. Yeah.
Desert Island Discs, top 3, no particular order, just like your knee-jerk reaction, just for this moment. Could change tomorrow or 10 minutes from now.
Electric Ladyland by Hendrix. Wow, that's. A Love Supreme by John Coltrane, and the third is really hard, but I guess the best of Sade.
I always remember I was down somewhere in the West Village, the old used record stores, and I bought Electric Ladyland, and I'll never forget opening that thing and seeing all those women and just the whole, I was probably, 12, 13. And it was just like, I felt so adult, like opening this double record by this amazing musician with all these like hot women in the cover. I was like, wow, this is,
Yeah. And it's funny. I read that Hendrix didn't like that cover. It was like,
really?
People did that. He was like, okay, it's funny. But, speaking of, I have a friend named Alistair Rivera. And when I was in Stuyvesant High School, it was an all-boys school at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. Well, looking back, what a decision. Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, and Stuyvesant. And 2 of the 3 were all boys. So she applied to a special high school. Girls had to go all the way up to the Bronx.
That's crazy.
And so she picked up the court. And we went to school one day. There was an article in the Times. Alistair Rivera, taking DOE to Board of Education to court. And all of us guys were like, oh, man, I'm going to call her, And long story short, I wound up calling the second night, and we wound up being friends and hanging out for like 7 years, even though she moved upstate. And they won the case. Other girls went to Stuyvesant, but her father was a college professor, and they moved away. But while that whole thing was going on, she did an interview in the Post. The court case was going on, and they asked, well, what music do you like? And she said, well, I like the Doors and, of course, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. This is a Friday afternoon. The Post had an evening edition at that time.
Right, I remember that.
Hey, she got a special delivery package, and it was a copy of Electric Ladyland that Hendrix had signed.
Wow.
Good luck on the school thing, and he did some doodles and stuff. And, I already loved Hendrix. After that, it was like, all right.
That's so cool.
Very cool, right? And that's personal stuff. To send an overnight special delivery package because the teenage girl mentions you in the Post.
Well, then back in the day too, you get an overnight package. It was like
big deal.
The president visiting you or something. It was like getting a collect call. Like the whole family gathers around. What's going on?
Yeah.
That's wild, man. Very cool.
Yeah, he was a really special spirit. And then I met him one time after the Band of Gypsy, second night, and he signed my Fillmore program. And he said, is that all right? And he's out there with no coat on when it was freezing. He signed everybody's programs and papers, and he just was cool. So
Hendrix just hung out and signed autographs. We
waited outside, and when he finally came out, he didn't have a coat on, but he signed for everybody.
That's amazing. Not many people do that. One guy comes to mind who does that consistently. Warren Haynes.
Yeah.
He's
Warren cool.
Yeah.
We were the Blues Mob was a house band at one of the Scott Muni.
Scott Muni from WPLJ or NEW, one of those two, right?
And he was, and before that, 77 WABC.
That's
Scott
right.
Yeah, with cousin Brucey.
Harry Harrison.
Yeah. And we were the house band for his the Hard Rock Cafe series that he would do every year. And one of the things we played with Vernon Reid and Warren Haynes. We learned Warren's song "Soul Shine."
Oh, beautiful song, man.
Beautiful song. And then he and Vernon, I'm not sure that they did "Sunshine of Your Love." They did something together. We played with that too. But yeah, so Warren's cool.
Wow, what a gig!
That was a lot of fun too. Yeah.
Michael, what are some of the most important things that you've learned about yourself throughout your career and I guess life in general?
Well, I've observed that I've had a good deal of not being especially responsible in terms of, marriage and finance and all of that stuff. And, I've come to learn that what people perceive, people always tell me, you're always cool, you're always calm, you never get upset, this and the other. Part of it is, I think I'm fortunate to have a balanced nature and be kind of, cool, but also it's practice, meditation is having the intent to treat people well, to see the best in people, all those kinds of things. And the way it's played out, like I meditate, every single day about every show I do being a special occasion of sharing joyous energy and music with everyone in the room, musicians, staff, everybody. And essentially that basically is what happens. So I guess that's taught me that it's worthwhile to have I don't know, goals is the right idea, but it's worthwhile to place importance on how you treat people, because it really does matter. And it's something that's possible and you can do really excellent things. And I guess the other thing is to have, accentuate the positive all the time, every time, because because everything is there. You can look around the world and see every possible permutation of misery and joy, all of it. Things that are just you don't want people to experience, but all of it's happening. But what you focus on as your personal focus, that determines your quality of life, determines what comes next, determines what you see and what you miss. So I think that's something I do. But again, it's not just automatic. It's a matter of practicing with the intention of living a certain way, and part of that also is trying to be more responsible in terms of family and finances and taking care of all of that,
Wow, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was very honest, cool answer, man. Thank you.
Wow. My pleasure. Thank you for the question.
Keeping it real in the Bronx.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow, that was really cool. Very cool. How long do you meditate for typically?
Well, I do. There's a guided meditation thing I do. It's like 15 minutes. And then I also do a meditation I learned from a book. It's called A Point of Power Meditation, focusing on this moment and what you want it to be. And that's like 5 to 10 minutes. And then sometimes at school, I have a great principal, who says, hey, we're going to meditate. Do 10 minutes there. And but 15 minutes a day.
Oh, that's great.
5 minutes a day is very effective,
Man, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, if I do those and every other meditation I might do just on the trains, it's, it's gravy, but foundationally, those two, that 15-minute one and the 5-minute one.
Do you use like an app for the guided meditation?
Well, there's for decades, I've been reading 2 series of books. Well, one of these, my friend Alice, once told me, yeah, there's this woman who channels, somebody from beyond. And Alice has gone on to be a doctor. She's great.
This is the girl who filed who was in the Post with Hendrix Got the Record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We wound up being together for 7 years, and we're still friends. When we broke up, my sisters were her bridesmaids when she got married. So she's, but one time she was visiting New York and she told me about these Seth books. This woman, Jane Roberts, channeled this personality named Seth. And those books have been, there's one particular called The Nature of Personal Reality. And they get deep. I mean, the essence of those is that you create your reality with your thoughts and beliefs and, but they have different exercises that you can see whether it's true or not. But one of them was a point of power exercise. I got that one from there. Then later on, there's a woman named Esther Hicks who channels these personalities. It was called these Abraham books. And it's a group of personalities who use that name. And those books are connected to the Seth books because the principles are essentially the same, but there's a different approach to them. But one of the things they do with the Abraham books, they have it's like a recording. It's like a 15-minute guided meditation. And one is about relationships. One is about financial well-being. One is about general well-being. And one is about, excellent health, and so it's really about, as they say, it's really about relaxing. You hear the words, but breathing, and so those keep me focused on the way I really want to live, and so.
And if you're not thinking, if you are thinking what you want your life to look like, your likelihood of it having it look like that is a lot greater than not. I mean, that's just things don't randomly happen. You made a comment earlier about, I'm doing things deliberately now and being more responsible. That's how shit works. It's like, you don't randomly luck into a good relationship. You might luck into it. You're going to keep it that way.
There are reasons why things happen. One of the Abraham things is, you're creating your reality. The only question is whether you're doing it deliberately or by default.
Yeah, man. Right.
And once you start focusing and really doing it deliberately, then you learn a lot of things,
Thanks for sharing. Now, some people are listening to this and they're thinking this is like the cards don't lie, right? But I believe very strongly that you contribute to your life the way it is. And, some things are inevitable and sometimes bad things happen to good people. But I believe strongly how you look at the world impacts what happens to you very much.
I agree. And it's, people, one of the things in those Abraham, one of the things they were saying is it doesn't matter whether anybody else believes what you believe. It matters that you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
There are many different ways to be happy, to be successful. A lot of different paths, and everybody's path is your journey. So,
No, I totally.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. That's some good stuff.
I was going to mention too, one of the things, I guess it's been since 2005, and I use a variety of overdrive pedals. I'm trying to remember the names. I'd have to see them. But when I did the album, Got It, Black Gold and Goddess is Bold, the cat from the label, John Stedman, JSP Records, he was visiting New York. And we had made a live album with Roof Records, with the Blues Mob. And he said, I know you're with Roof, but if you ever... I said, we're not tied to anybody. And we have a tour coming up. And our bass player couldn't do it, so I was going to do it with Colin John on guitar and vocals, Bill McClellan on drums, and me on guitar, so it'd be kind of raw. And I said, if we can make an album before we do that tour, so that's how that came about. And Hubert Sumlin is on that album. He sings, and he plays, rather. And it's a very cool album. And was a number of years later, he wanted to re-release that. So I said, if we're going to do that, let's put the bass on it. And I wrote three new songs for it. But when Colin came for those original sessions, he had a pedal called the Luxury Drive. And it was a clean boost by a guy named Tim Jowernig, who's based in Wisconsin, and I loved that pedal. And I talked to him, and he had another pedal called the Diabolical Gristle Tone Manipulator, and he designed that one for
his. Funny, man. Was Greg Koch involved in that? You know who Greg Koch is?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because when you said gristle, that's Greg's thing, man. He's all about, the gristle this, the gristle that.
Tim and Greg were college roommates. And so Tim designed these pedals for Greg. And then he made one that had both pedals in one box. And so that's the sweetest overdrive I've ever used. And those pedals, his pedals are what I've been using since 2005. Spell
his last name, Tim Jauernig?
Jauernig, Jauernig.
Great. That is so funny. I knew it had to, because you said Minnesota, Wisconsin, which is, and I know that's where Greg lives. I interviewed Greg. That's where he lives. And he's a great player. He is the guy more often that players speak to and that to me and tell me, man, that guy is, I wish I practiced like him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's phenomenal. Yeah.
Another guy in the city is Jim Campolongo.
Yeah, I saw him some months back. My friend Colin John, who I was just speaking about, doing the tour with, Goddesses and Gold, Black Gold and Goddesses Gold. And Colin and I have done a bunch of stuff over time. But Colin was taking online lessons with Jim Campolongo, and he and his lady were in town, and we went to see him down
at Rockwood.
Yeah. Rockwood Music Hall.
I get it. Like when I first started talking with Jim before we had a couple of conversations, I think to set up his interview or something. And I get an email from the guy at 4:30 and I said, Jim, I don't know you real well, but you don't come across to me as a guy who's like up at 4:30, like hanging out. Yeah. And he goes, no, I get up at 4 or 4:30 every day, clear out my emails. This way I could practice for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why you sound. That's why you sound like Jim Campolongo. He's a machine. But him and Greg are often cited as, and they're both telly players, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Hey man, do you have any? Maybe we just went over it. Any non-musical superpowers?
I think they're powers of spirit, of treating people a certain way and trying to look for the best in people all the time. And I have a goal. I feel like any situation I'm in should be cooler, should be better because I'm there, And it's not like, there's not anything that anybody else can't do if they focus on that. But, you can be in any backstage at the club, somebody's complaining about the club owner and blah, blah, blah. And it's, Terror Blues been here 28 years, 7 nights a week, 2 shows a night. There's a lot to be said.
Might be doing something right.
A lot of different ways. Yeah. And problems are usually magnified by focusing on them. And then, it's like, we got to talk about this, and you talk, and other people talk and make this bigger. It's not necessary, but I feel like people with whom I'm fortunate to play feel really good about the gigs, because it's a good time. It's a celebration. We're together. This is a moment, that really matters, because we're going to do something special together, And it's not about, it's not really even about focusing about what it's not. What it is a special occasion and an opportunity to do something really good,
So let me tell you this, man. You just said like you want to when you're around, you want to help people bring out their best. From the first time I spoke to you,
yeah,
you had this vibe, and I said, and I couldn't articulate it because we didn't interact enough.
Right.
For me to like sort it out. That is exactly it. You do that.
Well,
you do that, man. And I don't, it's this, And I envision it now that I've spoken to you a little bit. That's your mom it's setting a bar somehow for y'all. But you have that, man, for sure, without a doubt. Like I would say I would have a hard time being an asshole around you. I'm not usually an asshole anyway, but I would have a particularly hard time. I would feel like so ashamed of myself. So whatever you're doing, man, keep on doing it, man, because
you're more than gracious, man. And my mother and father, but also my siblings, because I've always felt really loved and appreciated and supported by all of them. And, there's a foundation there that's made it possible, I guess, to try to.
But that's it. When you said that, I was like, the dime dropped, and I'm like, okay, that's that, because I was trying to figure out that you had this vibe, positive, a good vibe, and I just couldn't articulate because we hadn't spent enough time together, obviously.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Same energy from you.
Thanks, man.
Good thing.
Any hobbies or interests outside of music, Michael?
Well, I read a lot. I guess that's. It's funny. I don't like sports. I don't follow sports as much as the same way I used to, like living and dying with the Jets
or the Yankees. I know.
But I enjoy them. And then a while ago, it occurred to me, wow, when the season's over, they're gonna go and enjoy their millions, and I'm sitting in the Bronx agonizing over what happened with it. It's like, what is that? So I said, okay, I'm gonna let that go.
Cut it loose, right?
Cheering for them, rooting for them when times get rough. I hope it gets better, but I'm not living and dying with that,
I know.
So I still, I realized I listen to more sport. I was telling my wife, I listen to more sports talk to keep up with the NFL. I don't have time to watch games all the time or NBA. I like baseball. I love,
It's hard to be a Knicks fan, man. It's very, very disheartening to root for the Knicks, man. I love the Knicks.
But it's a process, and it may be a longer process.
It's been a process for like 40 years.
It's like a long time, but they're going to be okay.
I hope.
And when that happens, it's going to be really rewarding. And so, in the meantime, I enjoy the moments that are good, let go of the moments that are not, and, keep on rooting.
Hey, man, what's your favorite place you've traveled? You've been all over the world many times.
Well, every place has its charms, but Australia and Brazil were the two places with the blues mob to which we traveled that were something else, But we spent a good deal of time in Germany. Our agents in Europe were both agencies over time, and especially Jazz House. They're in Germany, Freiburg, and Germany has been a lot of fun. Great people. Italy, Spain, Portugal. Well, the thing is, you meet great people everywhere you go.
Yeah.
All 29 countries we've been in, they're great people. I was in Beirut a couple of times playing in Lebanon.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was a different thing. They want your passport at when you get in there, and that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the promoter took me to the first night to a jam. They're playing blues and jazz. Lebanese musicians playing it well. So there's magic everywhere. There's magic everywhere. But Australia and Brazil were favorite places to travel. I think we went to each like 7 times.
Wow. That's a lot of people tell me Australia is their favorite. That's a very common answer, actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I interviewed a couple of dudes from India, of all places. They're amazing blues players. Amazing blues. And I'm like, man, we are so – I don't even – it sounds ignorant to even say it. And I said it to them. I said, I didn't even know they play blues in India. Of course, how stupid is that? They got 2 billion people there, 2 billion.
Well, they're doing some of everything.
But, we get no I said, man, the only exposure we get to Indian music is movie scene. Guy goes in an Indian restaurant and it's like Indian folk music. Guy goes in a 7-Eleven type of thing. It's Indian folk. We never hear anything about it. We just don't get exposed to it, man. But there's some rocking dudes there.
Oh, there are, and it's hard for people from other places to penetrate in terms of blues in the U.S. because it's a deep-rooted thing. But my friend Colin John and Deb Landau, Long Tall Deb, who's out my produced, and they're on Bob's label. they did some touring in India either last year or the year before. They had a great time.
That's cool. Very cool, man.
The song called "Streets of Mumbai," but
Streets of Mumbai.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to ask you two more questions, and I cannot thank you enough for your candor and generosity in your time, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I thank you.
Toughest decision you ever had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah. You know, if I look back to different times in life, when one of the things, when Alice and I were together, Alice who integrated Stuyvesant or caused that to happen, we were together 7 years. It was like the wonder years because I was like from 18 to 25 and she aged from 15 to 22. And there came a point where we were in a long distance relationship because she was in Massachusetts at UMass Medical School. And I had the band with my brother and sisters in New York. And in order for things to continue, I really needed to go there because she had come to New York earlier, so we wound up deciding to part. That was hard. That was crazy. Yeah. I guess also, although, putting Blues Ball on the back burner was, because a lot of years, a lot of work went into that. And, but on the other hand, it wasn't, that wound up being not that hard because of the alternative. I was going to be home and all of that, but yeah.
The thing I give you the most credit for that is that you were able to, when we do something, men, I think especially when we do something, and more so musicians, because it's such an emotionally vulnerable and all rooted in giving out and sharing emotions. But men, I think, tend to identify as X being like what our occupation is.
Yeah.
And it's like like a football player, leaving the NFL when he's pretty maybe not ready or he has to, and I give you the credit for doing that. And then and I'm sure it was a lot more difficult than I'm making it, but being able to move on like that.
Yeah. I mean, I have the blessing of being in New York, and so I get to play a lot,
right,
with great musicians. So which is not the same as having the blues might be my life, but then the compensations of there are other ways to make music. Right. Way back when we were together, Alice was very wise. One thing she said, well, why can't you just make music for your community? Of course I wasn't hearing that. I wanted to be a rapper. But looking back, a lot of wisdom there.
That's what you're doing now, man.
It can be exactly. I mean, it's so, and and I've been fortunate. Katie and I have been married. It'll be 29 years on January 10th.
Dude, congratulations, man. That's awesome. That is a significant accomplishment, man. Good luck. Congrats, man.
Thank you. But I think that was probably one of the wiser moves I made,
Wow. 29 years. That's great, man.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Last question, Michael. What's been the biggest change that you feel in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that change has been intentional or deliberate, and how much has just been a natural part of aging? I guess the biggest change is coming to have a different perspective about money, taking it seriously in the sense that, one of the things I came across reading those Seth books years ago, he said, if you have a negative attitude towards money, like if you think money is the root of all evil or all rich people are bad or whatever, then it's going to be hard for you
come into contact with money, it's like, okay, that was, and I never thought about, wow, yeah, I guess these negative ideas. Well, anyway, so many, many years later, and really coming to where I'm put the family on the front burner, put the blues mob on the back burner. And then part of that is, all right, I need to, make money consistently. I need to take Katie's happiness and well-being very seriously, and help make that happen. And if feeling more secure with more money coming in, in the Abraham books, they talk about money being really connected with freedom, and freedom being one of the strongest drives for people.
For sure.
And with money, you feel more free. You feel less, of the things that bind you. So I think probably coming to take that more seriously and having that different perspective on that. One of the other things I read was, it's not your choice of craft that limits the money you make. It's your attitude towards money.
Yeah. Man, when you said, I got chills when you said that. I'll tell you why, because I grew up in a household where those are the only messages I heard. Rich people are bad. Anybody who has money is a thief. And so as I grew up, I was like, well, I can't be successful because I don't want to. I value my integrity very highly, always have, even as a young person when I didn't articulate what that was. But that's, being true has always been really important to me. And I had all these issues with hanging on to money because it was like not compatible with the programming I had. And I had to spend many years like rewiring all that shit in my head and realizing, okay, well, who is the person that actually, what was that person's frame of reference that I should even be listening to this in the first place? That's like, you go to the gym and you want to get in shape and the trainer's 400 pounds, man, is that really the guy you're going to probably take advice from? It's the same thing when it comes down to it, but it takes a long time to unwind that, as you know. And
it's interesting too, when it occurs, like, oh, wait a minute, Robert Redford has a lot of money. You're doing great things, and all kinds of people doing really excellent things. And it's like, so it's not this one-way street where it's, some crook and thief and all of it.
Not remotely.
You can be doing great work and be blessed with financial abundance and pass it on, share it, spread it around, do great things, which leads to more of it. So it's like, okay, yeah.
And I have found, at least in the business world and also now in the music world, the opposite is true. The most successful people are generally the nicest people, they're really nice, really kind. And but for me, it took a long time to unwind that stuff, reprogram the cards, man, up in my head, so I feel you on that, man. Michael, I can't thank you enough for everything, man. Tony said, Craig, you're going to love talking to Michael. He didn't undersell you at all, man. So thank you very much for everything, man. I can't thank you.
Thank you. Man, it's been a pleasure. And you know what my wife wrote? She wrote Spin Doctors. Some of them also studied with Saku Sundiata at the New School.
With the Spin Doctors.
Michael and some of the Spin Doctors. Yeah, he was amazing, but yeah.
And anybody listening, go check out Saku Sundiata's. It's Saku, Sekou, Sundiata, Sundiata. Michael said he's got 2 albums. The second one I wrote down because I like the title. It's called A Long Story Short. And
oh man, yeah, you can just get that, listen to the first track. You're like, okay, I get it.
His voice is very cool.
Yes.
And I want you to check out Michael Hill's Blues Mob if you're not hip to them. All their albums are on Amazon, Apple Music, and everything. Any place where music is streaming and sold. And the last album they did was called Goddesses in Gold Redux. And that's it, man. It's Michael Hill's Blues Mob. Please check out their music. And if you're in town and you see Michael Hill playing at Terra Blues, come check him out and tell him you heard the interview, what a cool dude he is, and all that good stuff. Man, thank you very much, and congratulations on your upcoming anniversary.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you for having me too.
My pleasure, Michael.
All right.
Hang on 1 minute. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Michael Hill for spending time with us. Please check out Michael's music with the Michael Hill's Blues Mob. I really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing your story again. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.